My name is Elizabeth Andoh, and today I'm going to demonstrate to you a kind of sushi that you don't normally see in restaurants. You don't always see it in Japan either, but it's a perfect way to shape rice, and especially if you're wanting to do it for a crowd, for a party. I'm going to start by showing you how the rice is shaped. Normally you would see it in little nuggets that would be sort of long and narrow, and instead I'm going to make them as cute little pom-poms. Sushi, by the way, has nothing to do with raw fish per se. It means sushi rice, and the rice that's vinegared, and indeed that's what we're going to be using today. Vinegared rice sticks to your hands, and the only way to keep it from sticking to your hands is to use water. Sometimes having a nice damp cloth so that you're not dripping all over the place is also a good idea, but you definitely need your hands wet. My hands are sort of small, maybe medium sized, and I like to take a larger amount and get it almost oblong. And almost as though you were making meatballs, I would take off the amount that I think is right and finish off the shaping of it in my other hand. So at the same time that I'm taking a cluster of rice, I'm actually producing 3 of them. And this looks to me like a small enough size, it's going to be bite-sized, it's going to be comfortable to eat, but substantial enough that it will give you satisfaction. Okay, so we're ready to make a setup, if you will, for not really a mass production, but at least we can produce a lot at one time. The easiest way to keep everything from sticking to the cutting board is to cover it with clear plastic wrap, and probably just in a large piece that's going to generously cover your board, being able to be tucked in on both sides. Eventually what you want is whatever your topping is going to be surrounded by about 1.5 to 2 inches of clear plastic wrap. We're eventually going to be cutting between and among them, separating them out, and making each an individual bundle. So you want from the very start to have plenty of room around your toppings. The toppings that I chose today are radicchio, and when you pickle it in a sweet and sour sauce, it turns this gorgeous, intense, rose-colored, and at the same time the bitterness that's associated with radicchio is really very much held at bay. It becomes not sweet, but a very gentle kind of bitterness. Avocado, it's creamy, it's delicious, it's a pretty green. The best way to keep it looking green is to put a little bit of lemon juice on top of it. And I like to cut it so that eventually you're going to see a striped pattern, so that you've got the darker green on the outside and the lighter yellow-green on the inside. And then shiitake mushrooms, which are dried mushrooms, very intense and flavored. They've been softened. That liquid can be used to help cook them, and then intensified with a little bit of soy sauce and sugar. Those have already been made. They can be made 2, 3, 4 days in advance. Thinly sliced, hopefully so that you can see some of the tops and some of the bottoms. And we've set them up. So we're going to be making 6 pom-poms, 2 of each flavor for this. The rice. Plain sushi rice is fine. If you want to add toasted sesame seeds to it, it adds a nice sort of toasty flavor and a little bit of crunch. That's up to you. You could do it for all of them. You could do it for some or none at all. So I'm going to take a ball of rice. When you have something, can I say soft and squishy like avocado, it's going to be better if you want to put your wasabi, if you want the kick of wasabi, actually on the rice instead of on the avocado. And then you would turn it upside down. Whatever is going to be on the cutting board is eventually going to be on top of your pom-pom. You can decide for yourself. I don't usually put wasabi on when I'm doing the mushrooms. They've got a lot of flavor all of their own, so I'm just going to sort of sit it on top. The radicchio, you could decide one way or the other, but in order to show you, for this, since it's not going to move, I would probably put the dab directly on the radicchio instead of on the rice that's going to be on top. So I've got rice-topped toppings that are along the way. I'm going to cut between our pieces. There we go. And I'm holding it down. Clear plastic wrap has a tendency to scrunch up on you, so you may have to keep your hands open on either side as it's going. There we go. So I now have a row, if you will, of each of those three. This is probably more, and more is not always better, so I'm going to get rid of the extras. And I'm going to cut in between to separate this one out. Okay. So in effect, what I've got, and I'm going to sort of realign, is I've got what's going to be on the top on the bottom. I've got my rice on top of it. I'm bringing up the edges, and I'm enclosing it. I'm pulling down on it. The pulling down makes sure that the rice is going to stick to the top, and it also gives you a chance to shape it better. I'm going to twist, and that pretty striped pattern then becomes more visible. The other advantage of being able to tie it up tightly is that it's now no longer exposed to air. Normally, sushi rice, if it's exposed to air for a long period of time or put in the refrigerator, is going to get crusty and hard on the outside. This way, it's covered and protected. So you could make it ahead, and you could put it in the refrigerator if it was a really hot summer's day and you want to do it ahead of time. So that's one of them. Now I'm going to be cutting between these. Okay. I'm going to center my topping. It's taking up the opposite corners to the top and this one to the top, so all four are going to meet on top. I'm going to pull it down, and then I'm going to twist. And then I can always shape it better that way. So that's our mushroom topping. And for our radicchio topping, I'm going to center it again. Again, there's a little bit too much at the edge, so I'm going to trim it away. And I'm going to bring up the edges so that it's entirely covered. I'm going to pull down. The radicchio you want to blot ahead of time. Anything that has a great deal of liquid, otherwise that liquid is going to become problematic with the rice. And we're going to turn it around. So that's how you would make your little pom-poms. Okay, so we're ready to make it look as gorgeous as it really is. One way of presenting it would be as a buffet for a party, in which case I would probably cluster the different flavors together. Here we have the mushrooms, we have the avocado, we have the radicchio, and probably provide some soy sauce in a sort of a communal dip if you wanted to. If you're going to be dipping it in the soy sauce, the top should go in first rather than the rice, otherwise the rice will start to fall apart again. And I probably wouldn't with the shiitake mushrooms because they've got enough soy flavor in them as it is. If you are going to be providing chopsticks to help people instead of making it finger food, the chopsticks always point to the left, whether you're a righty or a lefty, and they're always aligned, never crossed. So if you're going to do an individual one, probably everybody you're going to assume is going to want one of each. So I would probably do clusters, 2 clusters of the various flavors. Waiting to the very last minute in order to unwrap them. That way they're going to look good and they're going to remain moist rather than dry out. I like to use long, narrow dishes. You could use a round one, but I like to use long, narrow ones. I love this one that has the texture, the roughness to it. And I'm going to make 2 clusters. That particular style is a fairly common style of food presentation in Japan. So I'm going to open them up, and I'm going to open up all of them without turning them over first. That way, again, I'm keeping them as moist and as good looking for as long as possible and waiting to the very last minute in order to put them on the plate. The amount of time that they could stay wrapped up, certainly several hours, possibly even a day, especially if you're going to be refrigerating them in between. Just before transferring to the plate, I'm going to roll them over so I can take a look at what is going to be visible at the actual topping itself. And they can be clustered. There's no particular order in which they would have to come. It's nice when you have the contrast of colors. I'm going to flip it on over And there, we'll go those out of the way. And there you go, all finished.